Oh, just
Well, everyone, it is that Weems guy. And thank goodness, or sadly, I did not have the camera rolling for the last few minutes that just took place before I hit the record button. We might have lost our explicit, non-explicit rating on the YouTube rankings, or on, excuse me, on the podcast rankings. But here we are. And tonight is kind of a departure from our regular show because several weeks ago I was looking for show ideas and someone suggested we want to hear what your favorite cop shows and cop movies are. And so I invited a bunch of cops to come on tonight. We're going to go through and we're going to each nominate shows for our lists and see if they make our overall list of cop shows that we think were great. If we get done with shows, we might move on to movies. Uh, Had three of the people that I invited were able to make it here tonight, and I'm going to go in clockwise order. Number one, the administrator that's still in the room, Warren Wilson.
I'm a cop at
so
heart,
not a cop.
not a cop. I tell my guys that all the time, but I can say stuff like my guys. I have I went on a call last week and stood there and didn't help at all. So that's the kind of admin you want.
That's right. You didn't screw anything up. That's really what you're saying.
Easy. Just stay out of it. Let the cops do the cop work. So
There
I'm
you
from
go.
Enid, Oklahoma. I'm a captain, and that's why they give me so much trouble. Deservedly so. And I'm just here to have some fun.
Well, there you go. Mark.
Mark Fricke, retired cop out of Arizona. And again, this was a good topic. We were on our little Tescapades was brought up, and I thought, yeah, well, I'm available tonight, so let's see if I can do this. I have some favorite cop shows.
Eric.
Not a cop. Well, retired now, so my opinion doesn't count. I did change my background so I wouldn't keep offending Warren.
I didn't bring it up. I'm just saying where you are, you could have found a better background.
It's the best background I have. I can't go outside. It's windy. It's raining. It's dark. You wouldn't see anything.
You sound like an admin.
Nope. Sound like a retiree.
Too.
All right. If I could have order, we will begin with the show at this point in time. All right. So we're each going to go around the horn and we'll start off with a nominated show. Each person will get a chance to nominate one. They'll say why they're nominating that show, whether it was because of just pure entertainment value, the setting in which the show was, the realism of it, and the like, maybe something with gun stuff, everything. We'll get this one out of the way. While Reno 911 may actually be the most realistic cop show there is out there because we've all seen stuff in that we're like, yeah, I've seen that. Probably that's not going to make the list. I guess I will be a rude host and I will start it off because I'm going to nominate what I think is quite possibly one of the greatest cop shows ever. I think this show got it 99% right, and that is Barney Miller. If they had changed the setting just slightly and made Barney like a shift sergeant in a squadron, like the desk sergeant, and had those guys in uniforms running out to answer the calls, it would be absolutely perfect. Because we all know detectives didn't respond or don't respond to calls that were coming in from dispatch. But otherwise, that show, from the characters were not all Adonis leading guys, there was a great juxtaposition of characters when one character left, and they actually, that actually happens in cop work. It's constant change. Well, one character would leave. They didn't try to replace them with the same character. They brought someone else in that was like completely different from the character that had just left. And a lot of the way they handled situations is a lot of the ways that I saw things get handled in the sheriff's office, not necessarily the PD, but just trying to come to resolutions. And oftentimes we spend as much time or more time keeping people out of jail than we did putting people in jail. So that's the first one I want to put up for Barney Miller. So we'll go around and discuss that. Warren?
Barney Miller was amazing. Of course, I was watching reruns. I don't know when that show ran, but I loved that show. I never missed an episode. My dad and I watched together. I wouldn't know about realism on NYPD and all that, but I hear constantly how real it was. I like the diagram and the dialogue rather, and the character development. and how they were kind of real.
Yeah. Oh, I got to throw this one out too. Barney Miller was filmed in the 70s. There was a Strom Thurmond being old joke in one of the episodes. And he was still in the Senate 20 something years later. It was just perfect. Just perfect. Mark?
Well, mine goes back from when I was a youth, and mine is Adam 12. And Adam 12 is my absolute favorite cop show ever because I know as silly as it sounds, I kind of tried to emulate my career after Pete Malloy. Because what I liked about him and liked the show is he always did what was right, even if it got him in trouble. He always made sure that the people he needed protecting protected, and the guilty went to jail. And I really enjoyed the show, enjoyed the realism of it. So it was my favorite for that reason. Of every episode.
Yeah, I'm going to have to second that. When I was 4 years old, for my 4th birthday, I got an Adam 12 patrol car. Now, we were in the process of my parents had sold the house that we were living in, and we were moving back to the farm. So there's pictures of like my 4th birthday party with all of our stuff in boxes in the background. And I distinctly remember that they had to put my Adam 12 patrol car in the truck, the moving truck. And as soon as we got to the new house on the farm, the first thing the movers got off of the truck was they handed me my Adam 12 car so I could go run off and play and get out of everybody's way. And so that has just always stuck with me. Reruns come on here every day at 5 and 5:30. So if I'm at home, I typically watch it. The reruns again and again and again. It's kind of funny when I applied for my first cop job and everything. The other show of that era was Emergency, which was about the smoke eaters and the ditch doctors. And my mother, every time she would drive by a fire station, I would make the emergency sound. The tones dropping. I actually had on my phone one point in time that if I was because I worked as a first responder as well. If I got a medical call coming out, it came out as the emergency tones being dropping, and then I had a cop one for if dispatch called me.
Be clearly that's second responders.
I had a defibrillator.
Yeah,
I was gonna be a paramedic because of emergency. I thought we were going around talking about Barney Miller. I didn't know we were.
Yeah, I thought we were too, but Mark changed the rules.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay, I was right for once.
Correct. Yeah, bring it back.
It was funny, and I enjoyed the show. I enjoyed the show. It wasn't my favorite, but I enjoyed the show.
I just figured I was wrong as usual.
Okay, I'll finish this about Adam 12, then we'll get back on the Barney Miller thing, and then Eric can do what he wants to do, because we've totally lost control already. When I first went to work as a cop, my mother was very, very, very unhappy, and she probably still is 25 years later. And she would say every time she would see me, she would gripe about me being a cop. I was like, Mom, when I get done playing Adam 12, I'm going to go play Emergency. And she got quiet about it at that point. Eric?
So going back to Barney Miller, because I thought that was the intended format of tonight's thing. Yeah, there's a lot there that's pretty spot on accurate. I had a family member who was a detective in a big West Coast city during that era who just swears that hands down is the most accurate cop show ever done.
Oh yeah.
While it was the same, the interactions between the people and the personalities is a lot like you get in the Detective Bureau.
Oh yeah. Any memorable moments from the show?
Bazooka.
No, for me it was. I just kind of remember Wojciech Howitz going back and forth with it, and then the sergeant, the patrol sergeant who kept trying to get into investigations. I can't think of his name.
Levitt.
Levitt, yeah.
One of my favorite ones was Barney Miller telling some guy that was like raising a ruckus in the cell to pipe down, or they were going to stick a towel in his mouth. And the guy says, "You don't scare me." And Barney looks at him and says, "You haven't seen our towels." That was just a perfect cop thing to say. It was just all time great. We also got to say who our favorite characters from Barney Miller was, and mine was Dietrich, hands down.
Which one was
Warren?
Dietrich?
Dietrich was the know-it-all detective, the one that had been like a lawyer and a doctor and everything else, and
Hmm.
the always one that was doing all the philosophy stuff and everything.
He's the
He
nerd.
replaced Fish.
Okay.
Warren, do you have a favorite?
My favorite scene is the and I don't know why it sticks with me, but it's just how Wojo was always, just not quite in tune with the way you're supposed to act, things you're not supposed to say. And I always loved that character. And so they had seized a bazooka of some kind, like Barney looks up and sees it pointing at him and goes, "About that raise, Barn." And of course, Barney has a fit and starts squawking at him, and he goes, "Well, it's not loaded." Perfect. Perfect Wojo.
Mark?
Really, there's not a lot of memories to it. Like I said, I've watched the show and I remember it. Fish was hilarious. His dry character, always complaining, was probably my favorite character of the whole bunch. I remember a lot of older guys just like him when I was a young rookie. So, but as far as specific episodes and lines, I don't really remember any.
Eric, do you have any memorable moments or a favorite character?
Probably Wojciech.
Yeah,
But
it's
I
hard to
can't
argue against
peg
Wojciech.
anything on him.
All right. I guess since Mark has already nominated Adam 12, we'll go around and talk about Adam 12. And I've already said my piece. Warren?
I haven't seen that show in forever, but that's another one that my dad and I watched. And I was just looking it up to see when it ran, because I remember those guys, and they were all just the good guys.
Yeah.
Like LAPD was really trying to get their image back, and not like they're not doing now. But those guys were always the good guys. I remember one scene, I can't remember which one even was. He goes sprinting down off the road across this park, throws his belt off and jumps in and saves somebody
His
in one
kid.
of the first episodes. Yeah, so it saves a kid from drowning. It was just cool. And of course, I watched reruns because that was I don't think that was off the air before I was even out of the womb. Yeah,
I remember it being
Thanks a
on air.
lot.
So.
you're welcome. No, it's not either.
I can remember watching it in black and white and in color.
Yeah.
I don't remember the black and white. 68 to 75. So I was 4 when it went off the air.
Yeah.
That makes me 39.
Mark, you have anything else you want to say about Adam 12?
What I liked about it was you saw the evolution of the police department. And what Warren said about them trying to get their image back. That was after, of course, the watch riots and everything. And that was, of course, done by the head of Dragnet, who got that up, and that an emergency. And they were, my name's on a blank on who he is. I'm trying to think of his name. Joe Friday.
Jack
Webb.
Yeah, that Jack West. He really was a big supporter of law enforcement throughout. And what I liked was actually the evolution of it. We saw the equipment change. We saw the tactics change from a lot of one-handed hip shooting up to eye-level sight to two-handed. We saw the event of SWAT with Adam 12, because that SWAT was coming in then, and SWAT was a part-time team, and a bunch of different patrol officers would respond to it. They were all trained on it. And so, again, a lot of different things with it. They covered both on-duty stuff and off-duty calls, several different ones. So I thought it was an extremely realistic show, and actually I really enjoyed it because I thought, like you said, they were the good guys, but I would have to give them credit when they had a bad cop, and when Lloyd did this, he went after him and got rid of him. So they tried to clean up their own too.
Yeah. There was even a episode later in the series in which Malloy uses excessive force against a child molester, and it keeps him from getting, they talk about how it might keep him from getting promoted. He took his rip, his punishment, like, hey, you're going to have to deal with this when you come up. And it was like it's one of those things, you can see it, I understand it, but that don't mean it's right.
Yep. Right. And that's what I said. He always did the right thing, and he accepted responsibility for his actions, which I just admired that. Like I said, I really tried to live that.
All right, Eric.
Solid show. I think like Mark mentioned, the evolution from Dragnet to Adam 12 to Emergency, trying to portray everything in a positive light after the stuff that had happened or was going on early 60s, late 60s into the 70s.
Yeah. Jack Webb was actually given a departmental funeral when he passed away. And there was actually a third revival of Dragnet in the works. And the actor that played Reed was probably going to be his partner. And had to come back. Had to come back, but Jack Webb died. The nurse that played Dixie on Emergency was Jack Webb's ex-wife. And she was actually married at the time of Emergency to the gray-haired doctor on the show. But they all still got along. If I remember correctly, there was a series as well that was about the LA County Animal Control, and it didn't last, but it was like part of all that same universe.
There was another one, and I don't think it was tied to them, but it was Kevin Costner, if I remember right, 240 Robert, which was on the emergency services detail and search and rescue at LA Sheriff's.
Yeah. I got to say that there are two lines that may tie for my favorite off of Dragnet. And one is they bust into some guy, I forget what the guy's crime was, but they bust into his house and Joe Friday racks it around on that Ithaca 37 and shoves the barrel up under his chin and tells him move and you'll find your head rolling down Fifth Avenue.
Okay, it was not Kevin Costner. Let me back up. On 240 Robert, it was not Kevin Costner. It was Mark
Hamill.
No, not Mark Hamill. Later played on NCIS.
Mark Harmon.
One of my favorite actors.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Also, everybody, if you look at the list of character actors that played in that thing, it's a who's who of Hollywood, of all major actors that came up and running later on in their careers. A lot of them started with Adam 12 or early on in their careers.
Yeah. There was also another great episode of Dragnet in which, Joe Friday is arguing with some like 60s hippie guru type about the drugs and whether or not they should be legalized and everything. And Joe Friday said this quote that marijuana is the match, heroin is the fuse, and LSD is the bomb. And it's like, wow, that could get twisted these days. But I will say I used that episode, and there was an episode of Adam 12 that one of the characters on that episode that had been out injured for an extended period of time. And while he was out injured, the Miranda decision has come down. And he's back and he's riding with Reed and Malloy, and he snatches up this guy that's a suspect and basically forces a confession out of him. And like Reed and Malloy are trying to explain to the guys, like, look, if you didn't read him his rights, we can't use it at the end. So it's like that was set in contemporary times of that happening. And I've used those in college classes to show, hey, none of these arguments are new. Here they were being talked about in the 60s and the 70s, and we're still talking about them now.
Speaking of Miranda, what was the one with Arnold Schwarzenegger and Belushi in Chicago? Belushi was like the Russian cop. No, Schwarzenegger was the Russian cop.
Was that Red Heat or something?
Red Heat. And the discussion about Miranda.
I know the movie. I know what you're talking about, the movie, but I don't remember the line. I don't think I ever saw the movie.
It may not be G-rated. But the dragons punched and
On Dragon, going back to my other episode with Fridays when he was in the laundromat to shoot the guy, the guy who tried to rob him, and the guy runs off, dumps the gun. They can't find Joe's bullet. Can't find the bullet the bad guy fired, and the lead smeared underneath the board. Raised it up and then dropped it back down again.
Yeah,
that was a good one because Joe was sweating that.
Yeah, I was just thinking of that episode as well. All right, so let's move on. I will throw out Southland. If you take out the scenes of Sammy and his wife, later ex-wife, it may have been also the perfect show. It was
at least the first two seasons.
Yeah, I just rewatched it recently. It's on some app, Tubi or something like that. I found it, and I watched it all the way through. Fantastic series, got a lot of the internal workings and the politics correct. Showed things from a patrol standpoint, as well as, you know, showing the detectives and everything as well, but a heavy emphasis on patrol. Now, obviously, it's geared up with a lot of action and everything, but of course, in a place like LA, you probably got something going on like that all the time, just maybe not to the same cops all the time. Just absolutely loved that show. Fortunately, the ending was not the best in the world because we all want to know what happened to Cooper. But that opening scene, or the scene in the opening episode in which the rookie shoots the guy, and Cooper says, you know, look, you're a cop because you don't know how to be one. This is a front row seat to the greatest show on earth. And then in a subsequent season, Cooper's training another rookie who is not performing, and eventually Cooper just rips the badge right off of his chest, like slowly, methodically, just goes out and undoes the class and like takes the badge off, and you never see the character again. And how many times I wanted to do that in my FTO days, I don't know. But like that scene right there just makes that just so warm and fuzzy to my heart. Everything. Warren?
So I have that down on my list too, but I got a long list, so it's not going to be hard
Sure.
for everybody to get on there. Everybody like Cooper, I think, had to be my favorite guy. I think that was the last cop show that kind of had, trying to stay non-political, that wasn't really political. It was more realistic about how cops think and how cops act.
Mm-hmm.
The ice cream scene. I got two of them. I'm gonna leave one. You got a little bubble there. The ice cream scene was the absolute bee's knees right there. It's just like, yeah, you're right, man. You do pay my salary. You want to give it a lick? Perfect.
Okay. Would you like to explain bee's knees to everybody who's younger than?
That means
Mark.
really, really good, or
Okay.
cool, or dope, if you will,
Okay.
for folks that are dope like I am in our 50s. That means cool, Eric.
Okay. Yeah, the scene he's talking about is Cooper and his partner in an ice cream restaurant or ice cream parlor getting a cone on a hot day. And a woman is mad because they're in there, and she starts giving them grief and everything. And I'll pay your salary. And Cooper, yes, ma'am, you're absolutely right. Would you like a lick? You know, it explains to her like, yeah, do you not get a lunch break on your job? I actually had that call come in when I was a shift sergeant. I had a citizen call in mad that one of our officers was daring to be in a restaurant eating a meal while he was at work. And I was like, ma'am, do you get a lunch break at your job? Well, yes. I said, so do you think we don't get lunch breaks at ours? I just don't think he should be at a restaurant. So should he bring a bound bag and go hide somewhere? Or, you know, just having that conversation. And then she got mad that I wouldn't agree with her that the cop was doing something wrong. And it's like, okay, ma'am, there's nothing I can say that's going to please you. So can maybe we end this phone call now? Mark?
Okay, I'm gonna have to confess, I've never seen it, so I have no opinion. I will
Well,
now be watching it,
now you
but
can
I
watch it.
have never seen it.
You
It's on
have
Tubi.
homework to do.
Yes, ma'am. I do.
Mark,
Yeah.
just watch the first episode. All you need to do is watch the first episode.
Because if you watch the first one, you'll watch all of them.
Okay, fair enough. I will. Trust me, I'll watch it. It sounds like a great show. The ice cream cone alone.
All right, Eric?
The opener is the one I remember. And it was interesting because while not those exact circumstances that led up to the shooting, there had been a shooting where someone had missed a gun on the search. And the guy had pulled the gun and while still handcuffed, shot the officer behind him. And it happened down in that agency because I can remember when photos of the badge were going around. I don't know who their technical advisors were, but they were folks who had spent a lot of time on the street and understood the subtleties and nuances and the difficulty and the humor that all comes into play with working the road. And in hindsight, they got things I didn't catch as being right at the time. They were getting right. some of the
Yeah.
opposite stuff and things like that.
Yeah, there were just so many great little one-liners, but like there were things that you would actually hear said
Yeah.
on the street. And of course, I don't know that we can repeat some of them. Although it was a primetime network show. It wasn't like it was a hidden cable HBO type show, with stuff being said. But it is revealed that Cooper, one of the main characters, is gay. And there's one episode in which they're on a call, and one man is ranting and raving about he's in a tattoo parlor, and he wanted Denise tattooed on him for his girlfriend's name, Denise, and the tattoo artist had put Dennis on him instead of Denise. And the guy says to Cooper, "It's like, do I look like?" And he says, a negative slang term for a gay person. And Cooper says, "I don't know. What does one look like?" And then the guy says, "Are you effing with me?" And Cooper says, "Yeah, a little." And of course, then they have to fight him. And, that kind of stuff is something that might actually happen on any different call.
Well, and also too, the substance abuse, the self-medication.
Yeah.
Right. Things that now are commonly being talked about in the profession that weren't necessarily going to be thrown out in conjunction with the profession back then.
Yeah. Yeah.
Except if you go back to Wambaugh, say, because Wambaugh did a lot of that.
He did, but my recollection is, and I'm going to say the choir practice, but he talked about the choir practice in that way. The stuff with Cooper, as I remember it, was they were pointing out not the choir practice stuff, but the lone solo negative aspects of it.
Yeah, the premise is that he's got a back injury.
Yeah. And
he's taking prescription drugs and he just gradually deteriorates in this condition until finally his trainee confronts him and forces him to get help. Yeah. Well, I guess I'm the one that keeps nominating stuff, so I'm going to throw it. Warren, you nominate something.
Oh boy, pressure's on. Okay, I'm going to bring it a little more modern.
Okay.
And for entertainment value via the writing, the dialogue, the character development, nothing else is realistic. Everything else is a cartoon, essentially. Justified. Reading the reactions. Okay. Nobody's yelling yet. I absolutely love. I've watched the first episode of that, I would guess 100 times. I'm not kidding. Anytime I would like feel down or whatever, that was my comfort show for a while. It was just like one of my guys died, one of my sergeants died when I was a lieutenant on night shift. And I watched it with him his first time like a week before. And so I watched it at least 20 times that week. And my wife kept coming and going, "Oh, he's not ready to talk yet. Close the door." Watching Justified season 1, episode 1. But there's so much cool stuff that they put in that 1 hour show. It feels like a movie. That there's so much they put into that show. And there was only 8 or 10 episodes a season. But there was just so much good stuff. And Elmore Leonard, you can kind of tell whenever he stopped being a part of the writing towards the end there. And the new stuff is nowhere near like that. The dialogue is just amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, the last season was not. This last kind of recreation season was not as well written.
Yeah. Mark, anything on Justified?
Not a thing other than the fact that, if I remember right, the character carries a 1911.
Carries a 1911 in part of it, a 226 in another part.
He was shooting a 226 in the opening gunfight, and then he carried a Glock 21 for a while. Then he went to a Glock 17.
Okay.
The kitchen table. The kitchen table thing, I think, was a 1911, though. I don't know if it was supposed to be or not.
But Boyd had one, and then there's later episode in which he picks one up off. Yeah.
Yeah, you're right.
There's a later episode in which he takes one off a bad guy and uses it.
That's what I'm thinking.
But now the actual character in the short story that the pilot was based on carried a big Smith & Wesson M-frame. And his hat was not like the one Raylan wore. His hat was an open road. But, oh well. Eric, you got anything on Justified?
It was good. That was just a well done show. Now, not street cop work, right? And like everything else, you to a degree have to suspend belief in order to watch it. But it was definitely enjoyable.
Entertainment value just out the roof. It's absolutely a wonderfully entertaining show. Had the marshals doing a lot of things that marshals don't do. And I think to a certain extent in the latter seasons, it got to be too much about Raylan trying to catch Boyd, being obsessed with Boyd. I think it would have been better had Raylan continued to do actual U.S. Marshal stuff. You know, like the first season, they were actually doing a lot of Marshal things. And then gradually it evolved into what it became. And then like if he'd occasionally crossed paths with Boyd, and then they would have the showdown. But the character of Boyd was actually killed in the short story and was originally supposed to have been killed in the pilot. But when they showed the pilot to test audiences, the reaction to him was so positive that miraculously he survives and comes back for the rest of the series.
Somehow he got 10 ringed and lived through it out in the eastern Kentucky, and 30-minute ambulance ride. He's fine.
Yeah,
that's realistic.
If he's a criminal, yeah, that's true.
Some absolutely great villains and some absolutely idiotic villains, which we've all seen.
Yeah,
the truth of that. Mark, you want to throw one out?
Well, we're talking about the Joseph Wambaugh, so Police Story. I know it's an older one, but Police Story was one of my favorites. And again, it was a who's who of who's in Hollywood at the time. Was on it. And a couple episodes that stand out was one with Don Meredith, where he was a detective and he was forced to go back out on the road. He did something wrong and was forced to go back on the road. He made a traffic stop, and this guy's just giving him a whole lot of crap. And Don Meredith takes his driver's license and eats it right there in front of him. Back when they were paper licenses, and gives him a ticket for not having a driver's license. The guy's telling his sergeant about it. He says, "Do you think I need a driver's license?" And the sergeant's kind of shaking his head and walks off. Another one was Lloyd Bridges, was a patrol officer. I think he was a corporal at the time, and it was a bank robbery back in the days when you went into banks when there's a bank robbery going on. And the kid takes a hostage, and Bridges takes out his revolver, and he's pointing it the direction, and he taps his marksmanship badge. Says, "You see what this is, son? This means I don't miss." Says, "So you got to give up the gun, or you're gonna get shot," or something to that effect. And I was like, well, that's pretty cool. So yeah, those are two episodes I remember. But we mentioned about the fact that I thought it was based on real stories of LAPD from officers. Wambaugh took a lot of stories from officers and recreated them, and a lot of this stuff was probably realistic into what they actually did back then. Wambaugh did introduce a lot of things about substance abuse of officers, about suicide and mental problems that officers were having, which was unique. It had never been covered before in any television shows. So it was a pretty realistic show. And a lot of the stemmed from some of his movies, which I remember The Blue Knight. There was a miniseries of that with William Holden. And then there was also the one with George Kennedy where he played the Blue Knight. And The New Centurions with George C. Scott, which was not a movie. But those were all pretty realistic at the time shows as to some of those problems that went on. They weren't fun. I mean, there's some fun parts to them, like the driver's license and all that. But it was a serious show.
And Police Story, wasn't Police Woman a spinoff of that?
It may have with Angie Dickinson. Yeah, it may have been. May have been. I don't know if that was a Wambaugh creation though, but it may have been.
Eric, anything on Police Story?
Before my time.
Yeah, I'm dating myself because I'm older than you guys, so that's the reason why I'm bringing out these old ones.
That was the 30-minute newsreel that preceded the actual movie, right? The Police Story in the theaters, black and white.
I think that the movie, Wambaugh's movie, The Onion Field, was first. His book was out on Onion Field, and then he brought up Choir Practice. The New Centurions was, I think, their first actual full-length feature. And like I said, George C. Scott was in there. So
I was giving you a bad time, Mark. I was contrasting
Sorry.
the TV show to the newsreels before.
There was black and white. Yeah. I'm not even sure I had color television back when all these were on.
That was during World War II when Eric was in high school.
I'm just not. I remember there being a show, Police Story, but I can't say that. Like I don't have any actual distinct memories of watching it. And when you mentioned it, the first thing that popped to mind, and I can't think of what the actors. There was one that was like Carl Malden was a detective, and Kurt Russell was his young partner. What was that?
It wasn't
San
Kurt Russell.
Francisco.
It was
Was that Streets of San Francisco or something like that?
yeah, they played sergeants, but it was not. It was Michael Douglas was his partner.
Yeah, Michael.
Yeah.
When you said Police Story, that's initially what popped into my head, but that's not that show. And then there was another one. Was it Crime Story?
Crime Story, yeah.
That had Dennis Farina in it.
Yeah, I got that on my list too.
Okay.
The worst thing they called anybody in that show was "you big dummy, you dummy." Don't you know that, you dummy?
Dennis Farina was reputedly a horrible shot with the gun, and then like he was later on another cop show, you'd see some of his gun handling. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, Eric, you got one you want to throw out?
An older one from high school era for me, Hill Street Blues.
Excellent.
And I don't know what it's like working in an older big city like that, but just the sheer variety of personalities that go into it, and the relationships and the on-duty and off-duty stuff, and how one thing you do in your career can get you marked forever, right? Good and bad, right? Because your friends, the people you work closely with, are not going to let you live down certain things. And I thought Phil Esterhaus, or the character Esterhaus, the sergeant, right, always ending briefings with "just be careful out there."
Yeah.
And then he was replaced by the female sergeant, Betty something, very, very tall, statuesque blonde.
Betty Thomas.
Okay. Belker, the undercover detective, the street crimes guy, right? Who at one point apparently had bitten somebody during the fight, and every time there was a fight, a struggle, Belker went hands on. Somebody else brought up the fact that he had bit someone. The SWAT lieutenant, right? Just like almost pre-Tackleberry stuff. And then just all the interplay, the interpersonal stuff. Busting stereotypes wide open. You had the redneck and the black cop working together, right? That you would think those two couldn't even be, and they were a great partner pair.
There was actually another sergeant between Esterhaus and the female character.
Yes.
His was Esterhaus is always, let's be careful out there. His was, he would end shift briefings with, let's do it to them before they do it to us.
Yeah.
And then he died as well. And then that's when they made Betty Thomas the sergeant. I'm sorry, Eric, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, that was it on, show wise. So
that line, people still use that line today. I mean, I know a lot of people, a lot of supervisors still say the same line. Be safe out there.
Warren, anything on Hill Street Blues?
I hope I got the right episode, or I got the right show in my head, but it feels like Belker and whoever his partner was, the captain, one of the captains that was, or the chief, or somebody had gotten bit by a rat, and the only way they could tell if the rat was that he had shot it, but it had gotten away. So they're trying to find this rat because they want to make sure it didn't have rabies, and they had all these detectives pulled off their cases and they're searching for a rat. And I think it's Belker that pulls out his 38 and goes, "I found it." Boom! Shot the rat, and he goes, "Boom! I shot it again. Here it is." And everybody went back to work. Good shot, Chief. You just barely missed him. You just barely nicked him.
Oh man, that's perfect. But it's funny if I watch it now, I was like, how did we ever buy Belker's being a tough guy? Yeah, because it seems so cartoonish now. I think the best thing about Hill Street Blues though was the opening
Yeah.
theme. When the garage door would come up and the theme song would start and the cop car would go rolling out on patrol. I think that was the best thing about that show. And of course, I tried to watch it all the way through here recently, and I got all the way through season 4 or something. Something happened. I quit watching it after that. So maybe I need to go back and finish it. But it was the must-watch TV show on Thursday nights there for a while.
I believe it.
A good show. The personal interaction outside of work was also very prevalent with the characters and their spouses and friends. So it didn't just stay inside the station.
Yeah. Of course, the captain had gotten divorced and had the new hot wife, and had all the interactions of him with his ex-wife and his son, and all the custody battles and exchanges and everything else going on with that too.
Which all happens, and we've all seen it.
We have.
Yeah. All right, I'll throw out another one. And this actually qualifies in 2 genres because it is a great cop show turned very good private detective show, which you don't see anymore. And that's Bosch. Great characters. I actually love Crate and Barrel. That's another one where not every character on the show is like, right straight off the calendar. And, put out in there. It's got old Wisdom Street cops. It's got the politics. It's got all the inner workings. It's got great actual cop work being done. It's not all being solved by the forensics labs and everything else out there. Harry's character has a sign up in his cubicle. So, get off your ass and go knock on doors. Because we know that's how you solve cases. You get out and go talk to people, you interview people, everything else. I just thought it was just phenomenal. That whole season, that whole show. I think it was ran as Bosch for 7 seasons. And then there's 2 seasons of it continuing in a different format where he's retired and has become a private detective. And I just watched some of the 2nd season this weekend.
Was this an HBO series? Because I don't remember even seeing this on
Amazon.
Amazon. That's why I didn't see it. Okay. All right.
And each season is a book and a half.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Well, they'll take the storyline will come from a book or a couple of books. Even though the books were written in an older, I don't know, 15, 20, 30 years ago. They tell the story in the book, but in the present day. And it works pretty well. And there's some things that, you have visuals of them from the book, and then you see how they brought it to life in the TV show, good and bad. And in the Legacy series, now that Bosch is retired, his daughter's a working cop on patrol. And how that plays out, and how a father knowing the inner workings, watching his daughter come up in the business with all the changes.
Okay.
Yeah, it's on Amazon Prime. So if you got Amazon Prime, you can watch it for free.
Yeah, I think it's exceedingly well done.
Yeah.
And
I'm sorry, Eric, go ahead.
I was just going to say it shows the administrative stuff pretty well too.
Yeah. Yeah, it and The Wire are probably the best 2 at that, I would say.
The character development and all that cool stuff. That's another one I had on my list because it's just so well done that you can't stop watching it. And then when you see it pop up, you can't wait to watch it. It's one that Becky and I always watch is Bosch. It's just so rare these days to have a show of that quality about cops that isn't cop hating.
Yeah.
And these cops are self-loathers, and they despise what they do, and they empathize with the criminals and that kind of garbage. That isn't true. It isn't correct in my experience anyway. Good guy doing good stuff, but maybe not perfect,
There's a line in the 2nd season of the continuation series in which his daughter is talking to somebody about the Bosch character. She says, he's always walked that line between justice and vengeance. And it's very good. And then she says, and now I find myself walking that same line.
Yeah.
Isn't that kind of we enjoy these shows that do the stuff that we would never do, but you kind of in the back of your mind, you kind of go,
yeah,
I couldn't do it, but not judging.
Now the gun handling in Bosch is horrible.
Oh, atrocious.
It's
Yeah, I don't
absolutely
know who taught him center axis relock, but
yeah.
Bingo.
The gun handling is horrible, except there is one episode in which the bad guys have shown up at his house and he pulls out a short barreled 870 and goes to work. And that's pretty cool. And you got to give props for a guy that likes jazz that has a dog named Coltrane.
True. And inherited a pretty cool house somehow.
Yeah.
he bought that. If you go to the original book, the very first book, it
Real book?
explains everything on the house.
You guys have a different episode about books. I'm not reading no books, okay?
Isn't the backstory on that? Well, he was a technical advisor for a movie, and that's how he got the money to buy the house.
Yeah.
And the house is really close to what's described in the book.
Cool. Yeah, I love that show. It's the one that occasionally I'll binge watch again. Like if I have a free weekend and the weather's bad and I can't do anything. So, okay, we're watching Bosch and we get started. All right. Warren, you got one?
Another one?
Sure.
Okay. How about Third Watch? Remember Third Watch?
Mhm.
I love the characters in that one again. I like the again stuff that we couldn't do, like when they had the guy. It's called Lottery, the episode. I watch it over and over again. This guy's going around just randomly killing people, killing cops, riding a bike, and they had a hard time finding him, and they were all just on edge, and they couldn't stop moving, and they finally caught up to a dude. Did some actual decent cop work with the shooting in a junkyard. Took the guy down by shooting under a car, getting him in the foot and the leg, and then Bosco comes up and smashes him right in the face with his foot. Not something any of us would do, but you're kind of like, fun to watch.
That Kevin Rockline, I ain't saying it's right, but I understand.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Not right, but I get it. Fun to watch.
Mark, anything on Third Watch?
No, I remember the episode that one was talking about shooting underneath the car and taking the guy out and the bicyclist. I think that one was based on a couple of incidents that happened, which were guys just did that. Guys were in their patrol cars parked, and the guy rode up on a bicycle and just ambushed him inside the car. And so that was based on some real life stuff too.
Eric?
Never watched it.
Worth it. Worth a watch. It might not hold up quite as well, but it was pretty good. And then when they would bring some politics in, but they would actually have it relatively balanced. It was kind of the end of that era in the OOs.
Okay.
Kind of do that. It was not bad.
Yeah. And it was called Third Watch because it was focused on like the evening shift in a precinct in New York, which is not called Third Watch there, but that was what they called the show. But it covered the patrol cops, it covered the fire guys, and it covered EMS and sometimes stuff in the hospital and all the interactions between all of the services.
All flawed heroes, every one of them.
Yeah.
Super flawed.
Had the quintessential old veteran cop that wouldn't take rank, but that everybody respected and everything.
The know-it-all rookie,
who
comes out and he got his patrol book that is this big, and the FTO takes his book and throws it in the trash as they're walking to the car. Like, forget all that shit.
Yeah.
This one PG rating. Sorry.
Yeah.
Stuff. Forget all that stuff.
Yeah.
It's really easy to get that out of there. I did an episode with Chuck here recently, and I figured out how to turn the sound down for just a little clip.
Well, that would require that I do editing because I don't. When we finish the show, I get an email that it's processed and ready for download, and that goes straight up to YouTube and Spotify.
Apparently, there's one word I can't say on somebody else's podcast, and that's what forces me to learn how to edit an episode.
I'm familiar with that episode.
For the record, it was not a swear word.
At least not in English.
It wasn't a swear. It wasn't a swear word in Japanese.
I gotta hear this story.
one scene from Third Watch that sticks out to me, and I think it was like maybe one of the early episodes, is they're directing traffic around a wreck scene. And this guy pulls up to Bosco. He's like, but I have to get through there. And I can't tell you how many times I've like been directing traffic at a wreck scene. And like the entire road is full of emergency vehicles, crashed up cars, everything else. And there's nowhere for anybody to go. And somebody's demanding that they be let through. And I'm just like, the bridge is out. How are we going to let you through or something along those respect?
Hey,
And
move
like,
all those fire trucks.
yeah. And yeah, so Bosco like yells to all the other people on scene, "Hey, I'm going to escort him through. I'm going to shoot anybody that gets in his way." He starts yelling, and like finally the guy realizes how idiotic he's being. Um, I remember being on the scene of a fatality where a pedestrian walked into the highway accidentally and got hit by a car and unfortunately was killed. And we're directing traffic there at that scene. And of course, traffic's backed up and everything. And so I'm walking down the line. It's a two-lane road. And I'm walking down speaking to people in each car. Hey, we got a fatality up ahead. We're going to try to get you through as quickly as we can. Understand it's just going to take as long as it takes, whatever. And this one lady was incensed that she was going to be late for a hair appointment. And like, well, ma'am, I'm sorry. He and his family are having a much more inconvenient day than you are. And I apologize that this is keeping you from your hair appointment. And she still never got it. But when I see that scene from Third Watch, I'm like, oh wow, that's it. All right, Mark, I think it's your turn.
For entertainment value, because I like the actor, Mark Harmon, you mentioned it, NCIS in that series. Another one I like, Michael Weatherly, who was played Tony DiNozzo, and the interactions among them. I just enjoyed it. It was a very entertaining show. Again, Navy cops don't get into that, just like OSI cops don't, just like CID cops don't. But for entertainment value, it was a good show. I like the interaction of it. And of course,
What was
Happy Shoot, NCIS.
NCIS?
NCIS series, yeah.
Okay.
It's one of the longest running TV
Mhm.
shows in existence. I think they're coming up on season 25 or 30. It's a long running show, and Herman left last year early on, and he retired because he's my age and he needed to retire. But I miss him, and I haven't watched the show as much since he left because he was my main character. I've been a Mark Harmon fan for years and years and years. I can name most of his movies he's been involved with. And actually, you know what? He was on Adam 12, by the way. One of his first acting roles was on Adam 12. He played a rookie who
Really?
lost his gun getting out of the car, and he bluffed the bad guy into giving himself up.
Yeah.
He didn't have his gun, so I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah. Eric, anything on NCIS?
The two female actors, the kind of punk rock gal who worked in the crime scene lab, and then I think the one that was Israeli. Other than that, I can't tell you a thing about the series. I didn't watch it much.
I've caught the occasional episode, and the only thing that I can say about the character that you're referencing, the actress that plays her graduated from Valdosta State University, which obviously means she's of superior intellect and culture and class.
Which one?
Happy Shuto.
Oh, Abby.
Yeah.
Okay.
The crime scene woman.
Yeah, she's a real serious hippie in real life. She got mugged outside of her house by a homeless guy, and she's insisted they not mess with him. But yeah, Mark Harmon is amazing in everything he does. He had a show called it was with what's that lady's name, that actress's name, who's beautiful. She's deaf. He had a cop show with her for a little while.
Marlee Matlin.
Yeah, Marlee. Yeah.
Yeah.
He had a cop show with her 2 or 3 seasons, and it was really good. He carried a 6-inch python. That was a great show too. I met Mark Harmon one time.
And he actually
friends now.
He actually is he has true heroic hero. He's married to Pam Dauber, had been for God forever. But when they were living in Hollywood before they moved up to Idaho, some teenage kids wrecked their car in front of his house and caught on fire. And he went out there and kicked the window out of the car and pulled those kids out of the car, burning himself, and rescued those kids. So he's got some cojones too.
Good for him.
Yeah, he's a good guy. I met him at he does this thing where he comes down, or he used to anyway, come down to the Oklahoma City AAA ball club and does a benefit game for some native kids for a charity that they've got going on. He flies in every year and did it. So we went down and talked to him a couple of times. He's nice guy.
Played quarterback at UCLA and ran the wishbone option.
Yep.
Yep. That's the only other thing I know about him.
They also played Bundy.
Because Valdosta State ran a wishbone option.
No, we run the air raid.
Okay.
That's the air raid that gosh. Oh, I'm trying to think of his name. I think of his name. Hal Mummy developed it, and then the guy that later became the head coach that was famous for all the pirate stuff. I can't believe his name slipped in my mind. Was head coach Mike Leach. Recently passed away as the head coach of Mississippi State. They were the coaching staff at Valdosta State when I was there. And of course, Hal Mummy ended up as the head coach at Kentucky. Mike Leach ended up at Texas Tech, then Washington State, and then Mississippi State. Yeah, got to see all that in its infancy at the football mecca of the University of Valdosta, Georgia. And that's not a joke. It truly is. The high school team has won 20-something state championships. VSU's won 4 Division II football championships. Then the other high schools won 3 or 4. All right. Eric, you got one to throw out?
I think I'm good on TV shows that I can think of.
Okay. Well, I'm going to throw out 2 as a combo because they're done by the same people. But they were done at different times, but it's the same source material for the same show, same production staff and everything. And that is The Wire and Homicide. Homicide ran on NBC for a while, and it was another one of those great shows that in the early seasons, again, the cast looked like real cops doing real cop stuff. It was a detective-based show. But there was lots of, you saw the politics, the inner workings. Later, the producers were pressured by the network to make the cast more pretty, and so they got rid of some of the more copley looking characters and started replacing them with more Hollywood looking characters. But the same source material was used for an HBO series called The Wire. That is extremely well done as well. And the source material was a book a Baltimore Sun reporter basically was embedded into a Baltimore homicide unit for a year and wrote a book called Homicide: Life on the Streets, and that became the source material for the book, and then later The Wire. And there's one line in the book that I think you're all going to agree with. And it's that logic and critical thinking are rarely the engine that propels a police department forward.
Doesn't matter how high you go, by the way. At some point, you still have to give up and go, okay, it doesn't matter.
Right.
This thing will not move no matter what you do, no matter where you are.
Well, speaking of moving, there's one great scene from The Wire where they're trying to move a filing cabinet. And so you got 3 guys that are trying to move the filing cabinet, and 3 other guys come up from the other side, and they're trying to help move the filing cabinet, and it just won't move. And then finally they give up, and someone says something about pushing it, and the other one says, wait, you were pushing it? And it turned out that the groups, like one of them, they were both pushing against each other instead of one side pushing and the other side pulling. It was just
That does
perfect.
not surprise me.
Oh, Warren, are you familiar with those shows?
Homicide: Life in the Streets, I never really watched. I watched a little bit of The Wire, and I just had to look up the character's name because he's good in everything he does. Wendell Pierce, he played
Bunk.
Bunk, yeah. He's amazing in everything he does. I love that. Any show that guy's in, I'll probably watch it.
Yeah.
But for the most part, it was just that character. I didn't get into it like everybody else did. I still haven't quite caught on to it like everybody else.
They had a great tradition too in the Wire. Whenever one of the cops was leaving, they would have like a fake wait for him and make him lie down on a pool table while they roasted him. that was pretty cool. Mark, you familiar with either one of them?
No, I am not. Either one of them. I don't get HBO, and no, just haven't seen it.
All right, Eric.
Nope, never watched either of them.
All right, you both have homework.
We have a lot of stuff to watch.
I drove through Baltimore once. That's enough for me.
I have friends who work in Baltimore, and it is a hole.
Oh, I think it was Homicide. They were looking for one of the other characters. They were looking for a white woman, and maybe it was, I forget, because they all run together. And like one of the detectives says, "If I couldn't find a white woman in Baltimore, what kind of detective would I be?" Just, you know, it's there was all such great one-liners like that. Lots of politics, especially in The Wire. Of course, same in Homicide, but it was showing how sometimes the decisions that come down just wreaked havoc on everything else. Okay, whose turn is it to throw one out? Not everybody jump at once.
One of the other two guys. I just did one.
Mark, you got anything else you want to submit?
Oh, let me look real quick. I put a list down, so let me look. There's some old ones that probably none of you guys have ever seen that I remember as a kid and remember as a young officer that I watched. And again, one of them stemmed from the Emergency series, and that was The Rookies, and my first appearance in love with Kate Jackson. She played the wife of one of the officers, one of the rookie officers. So they interacted with her a lot during the show, but it was a good one. I enjoyed it. And let's see, as far as detective shows, somebody brought up Beretta, and that was an entertaining show.
I forget that one.
Again, that line still used. Can't do the crime, don't do the time, or can't do the time, don't do the crime. It's still a line that people use today, and those lines just stick with you.
All right.
Yeah, Beretta was cool. I can't believe I forgot that he had a parrot or a parakeet.
Mm-hmm.
Pigeon. Parrot.
I don't think it was it talked or something.
Yeah.
Pigeons just talk.
I vaguely remember
Eric,
it.
the zoologist.
Yeah, I vaguely remember that show. Wasn't the theme song "Keep Your Eye on the Shadow" or something like that? I just kind of remember the show. The lead actor later murdered somebody, if I remember.
He did.
Yep.
I can't think of his name, but he murdered a wife.
Robert Blake.
Robert Blake. Yeah.
I was heartbroken over that.
That's from a movie too, Electric Light and Blue, which he played a highway patrolman in Arizona and got himself killed in that. So yeah. Columbo was another one. That was a favorite detective show. No real guns in it. And something we didn't mention and we've got to is Chips. I'm sorry. You gotta introduce Chips.
I was so excited the one time they pulled a gun on a guy. I was like, Mom, they actually used a gun in the show.
I don't think they ever showed a gun. The episode I'm remembering where they had a gun, where the officer actually pulled his gun. A guy had a Thompson and was shooting up the highway patrol car with a Thompson, and the highway patrolman comes in behind him, and you see him from waist up, in obviously a crouched position with what looks like his gun, and hands are in front of him with the gun, but you never see the gun. But yeah, that was an entertaining show.
Yeah, this one the kid was attacking him with nunchucks, and he got knocked down. He finally pulled the gun out, and you could see the muzzle for a second.
I missed that episode.
I think Bear's the only character that ever actually drew his gun on the show.
It was definitely goofy, but being that age, I watched the crap out of that. I had to.
Yeah, I watched it regularly, and I used to watch the reruns and everything of it, but it's kind of funny. It's another one of those that of course they got CHP, which are highway traffic cops working burglaries, and the like. Come on.
Eric
I just saw your eyes roll back. You got something to say? I know.
It's another Eric with a K. It makes him mad. He wants to be the only Eric with a K.
You're a CK. In that era, they were not peace officers.
Right.
They were not police officers. Their statutory authority came from the California Vehicle Code, and their title was traffic officer. They could only do traffic, and we could talk for days about what it used to be like. I worked a couple rotations in a gang unit with guys from CHP, and they were good. They were really good dudes to work with. But in the era of that TV show, they were not all roads, all codes. They were just about the vehicle code. I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, well, we're gonna go work undercover at the marina.
In tight shorts.
And what did they pay Punch and John for them to have all those cool hobbies?
Overtime, baby. That was well. They probably did. No, I'm not even going to go there. I'm going to leave it alone. I'll leave it alone.
Yeah, yeah. That one was, I think you could say, entertaining for the era that it was in, but it wasn't for the cop stuff.
No.
It was for everything else. All right.
Anything
Else? Go ahead, Mark.
Do you want to go to movies? I'm ready to go to movies when you are.
Sure. If you want to throw out movies, go ahead. Now, we've been going about an hour and 10 minutes.
Well, everybody gets one movie.
Okay. So, Mark, you go ahead with your movie.
Action-packed Heat. Really good one.
Yeah.
Good actors in that. But one of my all-time favorites will always be Dirty Harry. Sorry. Again, my era at that time, and the Model 29 coming into play, and everybody's knowing it. And nowadays, when I use quotes from the movie, these guys look at me like, what? And I'm giving them homework assignments. They've got to go see Dirty Harry and Magnum Force. There you go. Awesome. You gotta love it. Yeah, Harry Callahan's character, and again, this was during Miranda time, had just come out when that movie came out, and Harry wasn't accepting it very well. Search and seizure and like laws were brought up, but a good movie, good lines, good one-liners in it, which everybody uses, except if you're 20 something and got a clue what it is.
Yeah. There's that one where the district attorney says that they're going to have to throw out the case because he violated his rights.
Yep.
And here's, well, I'm all broken up about that man's rights.
Yeah.
Was Magnum Force the one that had all the rookie cops that had gone vigilante?
Yep.
Okay. Well,
and Briggs, the leader, was the mastermind of it.
Yeah, one of the rookie cops that had gone rogue was played by Robert Urich.
Yep.
Who was also one of the characters on SWAT. He was, if I remember correctly, Jim Street. And then he later played the lead character in a private detective show called Spencer for Hire. Spencer with an S, like the poet.
He was also Dan Tana.
Yeah.
Vegas.
Got a PI in Vegas.
Yeah.
Yeah, man crush on Bob Urich. I was so heartbroken when he got cancer and he was dying.
Yeah.
So heartbroken over it.
And David Soul was one of the rookies who later became Starsky and Hutch. Yep. And Tim Matheson, who played in Animal House and a lot of other roles in there. He was one of the rookies that got killed. Yep. So but the first two of the Dirty Harry series were the best in my opinion. The rest of them kind of getting more far-fetched and hard to keep up with, and they were okay, but they weren't the quality of the others. So Dirty Harry is mine. I'll throw out Dirty Harry for mine.
Okay, Eric.
Colors. Daryl and I have talked about this a bunch. Coming up as a baby cop and then starting to work gangs in that era in California. Well, there's some things they get wrong, right? It's kind of an iconic movie for that era of law enforcement. And the interactions, the differences in organizations, it's an iconic movie for that era.
One more time.
Colors.
Yep.
And who did her character?
Oh God, I suck at actors. Sean Penn's the young gang cop. He's not a rookie, but he's young. Robert Duvall is his older partner. There is a lot of mentoring going on there that hits you in different ways at different points in your career.
And I didn't watch it because I don't like Sean Penn, so I don't watch it. I should watch it, but I haven't.
Yeah, this was late '80s, so it was before Sean Penn pulled all of Sean Penn stuff. I mean, at that point, I think we knew him from Taps and Fast Times at Ridgemont High. Like none of his other stuff.
That was a good movie.
The only comment I got about Colors is that one of the technical advisors was originally from Georgia, who always had this thing about wanting to be an LA cop, and went out there, made it into Metro, and was a technical advisor for the show, and then decided to move home and came back and was working for an agency here in Georgia. And he taught me in the academy.
Okay.
And I was not familiar with the movie until he mentioned it. And so I watched it after that. And yeah, I like Robert Duvall. I'm not a fan of Sean Penn. And the movie, it's all right, but I don't have that same connection to that era and that stuff like you guys did.
And I was fortunate early on in my career. I got to go down to LAPD and go to a school with Crash and roll with one of them. And then a couple of years later, I got to roll out with LA Sheriff's Department, Safe Streets Bureau. So I got to see both sides of those organizations, of those teams, kind of close in proximity to that. Like I said, they got stuff right, they got stuff wrong, but it's kind of an iconic movie.
Yeah. Warren?
I got so many of them written down here. So if I was cool, I'd say The French Connection, but I'm not going to do that one because
That's cool.
It is cool, but I'm gonna get outside the box a little bit, and I'm gonna say, and you're gonna love me. This was at an important time in my life when I needed a laugh. In the mid '90s, when I was trying to get early to mid '90s, it was hard to become a cop. You had to beat down the door to get in, and that was when I was in my early mid 20s. So it was frustrating. I was working nights; it was terrible, and I always liked buddy cop movies, so I like Lethal Weapon and all that kind of stuff. But the one that came around at the right time that just cheered me up and hit me right was, you guys ready for this? Bad Boys. Now I know
it's good fun ones.
Outside, I mean, you guys got to outside of the F-bomb every sentence, which doesn't bother me, but it's not really necessary. But just the ridiculous buddy cop humor of that show, and I love too as well. It was just
they're coming out with another
hilarious.
one. Just saw on the Miami news that they're coming out with it with another one, and Will Smith and who's
Martin Lawrence.
Martin Lawrence.
They're gonna get Martin Lawrence a bodyguard to stay in between him and Will at all times, just to make sure nothing happens.
Probably so. But anyway, they're doing a third one or fourth one. I don't know whichever it is, but
it might be fourth.
Yeah, I think it's the fourth.
Might be fourth. That's mine.
Everybody keeps throwing out two. I will dovetail on the Partners thing. End of watch. I wasn't going to watch it because Hollywood had just soured me on cop stuff. And I had a trainee who was like, you have to watch the movie. It's pretty decent. It's not bad. I mean, yeah, there's a lot of stuff that's way far-fetched, but they did some things right in that.
Very best simulated dash cam gunfight ever.
Pursuit, everything.
People are constantly putting it on the internet saying, "Hey, this is a badass shootout." It's a movie, but it was really well done. It really looked pretty real.
All right. I guess since Eric has given us all dispensation to do two.
Well, you guys had both done two.
I threw out Heat and Dirty Harry.
Right. So many, there's so many good options. The first one I'm going to throw out is LA Confidential. Just because of the historical stuff that went along with it, not endorsing any of the stuff that happens in it, obviously, but just the characters, it actually being based on some realistic events, and they probably got that pretty good in the movie. Just all of that, the way that everything was played, the Russell Crowe character. Supposedly he actually had a miniaturized apartment set up and lived in it, so it would make him feel like he was larger than life and get that mentality, so that it would translate over into his character. And of course I love the old fedoras and all that kind of stuff. So you had all that coming out, those guys wearing that clothing, the old shotguns, the old revolvers, everything else. So I liked it that way. And this last one I'm going to throw out is probably going to get some guffaws. And that's fine. I'm going to nominate the Miami Vice movie. And not because it was a good movie, but because whatever year the movie came out was I wonder what a Miami Vice episode would look like if it was being filmed today.
Okay.
And if you watch the movie in that frame of mind, it was like okay, we're just watching. They've moved it forward 20 years or 25 years, however much it was. Now here it is set in had that same feel to it and everything else. And I just thought it was really well. I know it got panned by the critics and it didn't do well, but I watch it whenever it comes on because, as a, you know, seventh, eighth grader like that, watching the show on Friday nights and how cool it all seemed to be and everything. Decades later, here comes this movie. It's like, I always wondered what an episode would look like if they were doing it today. And there it was. Anybody got anything on it?
Didn't see it.
It's it.
You're supposed to hate it, but I actually liked it. I thought it was fine. Maybe you won't twitch. I actually liked it, but I'm maybe easily entertained.
It's funny. I was teaching for an agency not far from me one night, and I wanted to use an example, and I needed to bring out the old Miami Vice show. I said, "Who in here remembers Miami Vice?" And this young rookie cop in the back, his hand gets up, especially if he's all excited because he finally knows something I'm asking about. And I said, Don Johnson, not Colin Farrell. And he literally just hangs his head and just gives up at that point. And so that's always kind of stuck with me. Mark, have you seen it?
The Miami Vice one?
Yeah.
No, I've not seen it. No.
Okay. I normally don't like stuff with Jamie Foxx, but that movie was okay. Anything on LA Confidential?
I like the darkness of it. Like you said, it was during a bad time. Hard to find out and have anybody really to root for in that one. And I like to have more Tennessee movies which have happy endings and have a good guy in it. So I mean, they were all flawed in many, many ways, but overall good movie. Knew Kim Base. I met Kim Basinger when they did the getaway here in town, and well, yeah, I'll just leave it at that. Yeah.
Since you brought up Kim Basinger, I have to tell that story. She's from a nearby town, and where I live now. And there is a gentleman in the county in which I used to work that has a very high-end construction company. And have y'all ever seen that statue of like the cowboys riding off on the horse that was done by Frederick Remington?
Mhm.
There are 4 of those in existence. One is at the St. Louis Arch. One is some other public place, something along like that. The other one is owned by one of the co-founders of Microsoft, and the other one is in front of this guy's house. That tells you what kind of wealth we're talking about here. He wanted to give me a tour of his house one time, and he dared me to pick up a statue. It was another Frederick Remington statue, and I couldn't pick it up, and it's made out of sterling silver. And it's okay. So we're in his wine cellar, one of the wine cellars that are in his house, and he's pointing out a bottle of wine, and it's in like a cardboard box with, that green stuff that you used to get in Easter baskets.
Mhm.
Yeah.
The bottle of wine is nestled in that green stuff, and it's all wrapped in cellophane.
Fake grass.
Yeah, the fake grass. And I know nothing about wine, nothing whatsoever. And this gentleman is ranting and raving about this bottle of wine. You see this? You see this? Some people have no appreciation for money. Look how they have treated this bottle of wine. This is a $900 bottle of wine. He said, I know it's a $900 bottle of wine because there's a case of it right there. And he points to a case. Okay. The whole reason that he was giving me a tour of his house was because he's had logs milled and transported in from Montana and has had this cabin built, and they call it the cabin. It's got open rafters, and they take me into the master bedroom, and there are 22 caliber bullet holes in all of the rafters. Oh, I'll go back to the wine thing. Yeah, Kim Basinger had given him the bottle of wine, and that was what brought this thing up to me. She had come
Kim
for a wine.
Basinger shot this house up.
Yeah, she'd come for this wine tasting and had given him the bottle of wine. He was like, look how she thinks of this, everything.
And then you got to speak to.
So he takes me in to show me the master bedroom, and there are 22 caliber bullet holes all in the rafters. Well, it turns out bats have gotten into the house, and he's put a Henry Golden Boy next to the bed. And he's like shooting the bats as they get on the rafters. And they wanted me to know that if something happened to them, not to worry about all the bullet holes in the rafters. They had nothing to do with it.
Bats in the belfry all the way around.
It's things that, people, oh, that can never be real. Yes, stuff like that happens to us all the time. It's the front row seat to the greatest show on earth. Greatest show on earth.
So true.
Okay, I guess we have all rambled on tonight with this fun, nutty episode. We'll go around for any final thoughts and anything you got upcoming. Warren?
Oh, nothing major going on. I'm cutting back on classes for the next few years, so I'll probably won't see you as many times in the next couple of years, but mostly just this is fun cop stuff, and this is the kind of stuff that probably should do for cops every once in a while. Just remember, have some fun. Don't focus on the crazy. That's all I got.
Art?
A lot of private contract stuff that is closed schools. Really, I don't have that. The only thing I have really open flew my class is always up in Wyoming in June. For folks that are interested in that, they can reach me at AFTT17 at MSN.com for that. I'm trying to get your buddy Lee to Mr. Harvey to try to come up.
Steve Havey.
Havey, that. So
he will be at TACCon, so remind me to introduce the two of you.
okay. I'll be at TACCon also. So looking forward.
He'll be hard to spot.
Yeah, he's only going to be towering majestically above everyone else.
6'9".
Wow. Hey.
His legend grows just like his height does. Eric?
We've talked about some good movies, good TV shows, and some not so good ones. When the record button goes off, I have a story about one of the movies there.
Now I'm going to get 34 emails.
You're right, but that's not what this is. Not what I'm going to tell in public. Coming up, TACCon, a Girl and a Gun conference. After that, at Cameo in Grand Junction. Classes at Gunsight. I'll be doing my pistol mounted optics instructor class in Ohio in June, in Pennsylvania in August. Pennsylvania is LE only, and then Meade Hall in December. Chance we're going to redo it down on the Arizona border some later this year. And if anybody's interested in my low light instructor class, 3 nights, guys in Southern California love it. I'm looking to get that one on calendar this fall at least once, if not twice.
I will make it one of these days, Eric. I promise. I know I keep saying that, but I'll make it.
Oh, I look forward to it.
Seriously. Me too.
Well, low light's probably something we need to do a show on with all the discussion of weapon mounted lights that's been going on recently.
Yep.
I am in the home stretch on my graduate program. This week was actually spring break for that, and I actually got an assignment ahead. And I'm going to try to get another assignment ahead this coming week. She has released all of the assignments for the session. We're all working independently, and then there's like some group collaboration stuff we got to do as well. And so I'm trying to get feverishly done with this so I can be done. But anyway, early May at some point, I'll be done with that. The job is going to prevent me from traveling as much as I had, and plus I've just burned out on that. So I'm going to probably be staying in the 3 to 4 hour radius of Athens. However, we do need to get a cognitive conclave at some point in time this year, because I've come up with some good stuff for my block on that. The only thing I have scheduled at this point is I'm going to do an open enrollment class in Cisco, Georgia, which is up near Dalton, Georgia, which is near Chattanooga, Tennessee. September 21st. We'll just have the date reserved. We have not finalized what the class will be. So be watching my web pages and stuff like that for that to come out. But other than that, we'll see. Warren, are you going to be at TACCon?
I will.
All right, so all of us will be at TACCon.
Look forward to meeting you.
Me too.
So it'll be fun to see each of you guys in a few weeks. That is actually the spring break for the college classes that I teach. So I won't be having to rush back to the hotel each night to do stuff with that. And I'm actually going to have a weekend off that I get to do nothing but hang out with all the TACCon folks. So I'm looking forward to that greatly. Folks, I hope you've enjoyed this episode that's just kind of off the beaten path. It was fun just to sit around and talk with the guys for once and not have to actually think of anything. And yeah, I remind you to only share the links to these shows with your smart friends. And your time is your most important asset. Thank you for choosing to spend some of it with us.